The proposition Olivia Monroe stared at the hospital bill in her trembling hands. $95,000. The number blurred as tears threatened to spill. Her father's emergency triple bypass had saved his life, but the costs would destroy theirs. Insurance covered only a fraction, and the hospital administrator had made it clear payment was due in full within 30 days, or they'd face collections. She'd already sold her car, emptied her savings, and taken extra shifts at the diner. Enough not even close. At 27, with student loans still looming and a teaching salary that barely covered rent, Olivia was drowning. "Miss Monroe?" The smooth voice startled her. A woman in a crisp charcoal suit stood in the hospital waiting room, holding a leather portfolio. "I'm Josephine Ward, from Blackwood Legal. May I have a moment of your time?" 20 minutes later, Olivia sat across from Josephine in the hospital cafeteria, certain she'd misheard. "You want me to marry someone for money?" She whispered the last part, glancing around. "My client requires a spouse, temporarily, to fulfill inheritance requirements. The arrangement would last exactly 45 days. In exchange, he's prepared to pay all medical expenses for your father, plus an additional $50,000 when the contract terminates." Olivia's mind reeled. This can't be legal. The marriage would be legally binding, though temporary. All parties enter with full knowledge it's a business arrangement. "My client is extremely private and requires absolute discretion." "Who is?" "He, William Harrison." The name triggered a vague recognition. Olivia had seen it in business magazines, something about technology and family fortune. Why me? "You have no romantic entanglements, no criminal record, and an immediate financial need that aligns with his timeline. You were carefully selected." "This is insane," Olivia muttered. "Perhaps, but insanity and desperation often walk the same path." Josephine slid a business card across the table. "Should you wish to proceed, call this number by tomorrow noon. My client's deadline approaches quickly." That night, Olivia sat beside her sleeping father, the steady beep of his heart monitor punctuating her thoughts. Leonard Monroe had raised her alone after her mother died, working 2 jobs to put her through college. Now he lay here, his life saved, but their future in ruins. At dawn, she called the number. 3 hours later, she sat in a sleek downtown office, facing the man she would supposedly marry. William Harrison was nothing like she'd imagined. An imposingly built, with sharp features and calculating gray eyes that seemed to evaluate her worth with each glance. At 32, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who commanded rooms, not entered them. "My grandfather's will stipulates I must be married before my 33rd birthday to maintain control of Harrison Technologies," he explained without preamble. "That's in 6 weeks. The marriage must last minimum 45 days to satisfy legal requirements. So I'm just a checkbox on your inheritance list?" Olivia couldn't help asking. Something flickered in his eyes, annoyance, perhaps. "And I'm just an ATM for your hospital bills." Let's not pretend this is anything but mutually beneficial business. The contract before her outlined everything. Shared residence for appearances. Absolute confidentiality. Separate bedrooms. No physical intimacy. After 45 days, they would quietly divorce. "Why not just date someone normally?" she asked. William's jaw tightened. "My schedule doesn't accommodate romance. This is efficient." Sufficient, as if marriage could be reduced to a business transaction. Yet here she was, pen hovering over the contract that would save her father's life. "Do we have an agreement, Ms. Monroe?" William asked, his voice betraying nothing. Olivia signed her name. "Yes." "It's a deal, Mr. Harrison." Neither realized they'd just signed up for far more than either had bargained for. Paper promises. Olivia's suitcase looked pathetically small in the vast marble foyer of William's penthouse. The 63rd floor offered panoramic views of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows, making her feel as though she were floating above reality, which in many ways she was. "Your room is down the east hallway," William said, barely glancing at her as he tapped away on his phone. "Josephine has arranged for your father's bills to be paid in full by end of business today. My housekeeper, Mrs. Patel, comes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I leave by 6 each morning and typically return after 8. The kitchen is fully stocked, though I rarely use it. Olivia nodded, trying to absorb both the clinical instructions and the overwhelming luxury surrounding her. The apartment was a study in minimalism, mall clean lines, neutral tones, and expensive emptiness. Like its owner, it was impeccably presented, yet strangely hollow. We'll need to attend 3 events together in the coming weeks, William continued. First, a charity gala this Saturday, and my company's quarterly board dinner. Finally, my grandfather's birthday celebration at the family estate. Josephine will brief you on appropriate behavior and background information. Appropriate behavior? Olivia echoed, a spark of indignation cutting through her intimidation. I'm not completely socially inept, you know. I can handle a few dinner parties without embarrassing you. For the first time, William really looked at her, his gray eyes calculating. These aren't just dinner parties, Ms. Monroe. These are strategic engagements where millions of dollars and my family's legacy hang in the balance. Every gesture, every word will be scrutinized. It's Olivia, she corrected. If we're supposedly married, you might want to start using my first name. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Fair point. ... Olivia. The way he said her name reluctantly, as if testing an unfamiliar food, made her realize just how bizarre this arrangement truly was. Their first week together established an awkward rhythm. They orbited each other like cautious planets, carefully. Maintaining their distance, William was true to his word. He vanished before dawn and returned late, often retreating immediately to his home office. Olivia spent her days visiting her recovering father, preparing lesson plans for the school year ahead, and exploring the strange luxury of having no financial worries for the first time in her adult life. The charity gala arrived too quickly. Olivia found herself in a midnight blue gown she never could have afforded, standing beside William as he expertly navigated the crowd. William, you've been keeping secrets? A woman with a diamond necklace worth more than Olivia's annual salary approached them. No one knew you were even dating, let alone married. William's arm slid around Olivia's waist, his touch firm but impersonal. Helena, meet my wife, Olivia. We wanted to keep things private. How wonderfully romantic, Helena cooed, clearly not believing it for a second. And what do you do, dear? I'm a third-grade teacher, Olivia replied honestly. Helena's perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched. How ... Unusual. And how did you two meet? Before Olivia could stumble through their prepared story, William answered smoothly. Olivia was volunteering at a literacy program my foundation sponsors. She told me my approach to educational funding was entirely wrong, and I found her perspective ... illuminating. The lie was surprisingly thoughtful, incorporating her actual profession. Olivia played along, adding details about fictional children, and programs that had Helena nodding with decreasing interest before she wandered away. That wasn't in our prepared backstory, Olivia murmured as they moved toward the bar. Improvisation sometimes yields more believable results, William replied, signaling for champagne. Besides, it's not entirely false. I imagine you would tell me if my educational initiatives were misguided. Are you asking my professional opinion on your foundation's work? A hint of a real smile touched his lips. Perhaps another time. As the evening progressed, Olivia observed William in his natural habitat. He moved with practiced precision, never wasting a word or gesture.
Dad.
There was something mechanical about his interactions, as if he were performing rather than participating. Later, that night, as they rode the elevator back to the penthouse in silence, Olivia found herself wondering about the man behind the perfectly tailored mask.
Eat.
What had shaped him into this efficient, emotionless machine? What would it take to find the human beneath? She wasn't here to find out, she reminded herself firmly. This was a business arrangement with an expiration date. It's nothing more. Yet, when William unexpectedly handed her a cup of tea, she sat reading on the balcony the next morning, having apparently noticed her daily routine, the simple gesture. It felt strangely significant. Thank you, she said, surprised. He nodded once, already turning away. We have our story straight now. Let's keep it that way. But that night, when thunderstorms rattled the windows and Olivia found herself unable to sleep, she wandered to the living room to find William similarly awake, staring out at the lightning-streaked sky. I've always loved storms, she offered quietly. He didn't turn. My mother was terrified of them. She used to hide in the closet until they passed. The personal details, so unexpected, hung in the air between them, delicate as spider silk. Neither acknowledged it, but something in their carefully constructed boundaries had shifted. Just slightly. The paper promises they'd signed were beginning to feel less like contracts and more like possibilities. Unexpected rhythms. By the third week, William and Olivia had developed an unspoken choreography. She rose early to grade papers at the kitchen island. He emerged from his morning workout to make coffee for two. They rarely spoke during these quiet moments, yet the silence had evolved from awkward to almost companionable. Olivia had expected to feel like an intruder in his space, but increasingly the penthouse felt less like a stage set and more like a shared environment. She'd brought small touches, a throw blanket here, a potted plant there that softened the clinical perfection. William never commented. But she noticed he sometimes used the blanket during late-night work sessions. One evening, she returned from visiting her father to find William home unexpectedly early, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled. "Is everything all right?" she asked, setting down her bag. "Fine," his curt response, and the tumbler of amber liquid in his hand suggested otherwise. Olivia should have retreated to her room. That was their unspoken agreement. "Bad day?" William stared at his drink. My grandfather's company was everything to him. He built it from nothing, working 18-hour days, sacrificing everything. A bitter edge sharpened his voice, including his family. "Is that why he put that clause in his will, to force you to have what he didn't?" William's eyes snapped to hers, surprised by her insight. "Perhaps. Or to ensure I wouldn't become exactly like him, all ambition, no connection." He drained his glass. "Ironic that his solution was to force me into a fraudulent marriage." "Not entirely fraudulent," Olivia said thoughtfully. "Legally binding, just differently motivated." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You have a talent for reframing, Olivia." The way he said her name had changed. No longer an awkward formality, but something almost warm. "Tell me about your father," he said unexpectedly. The question startled her. They rarely discussed personal matters. "He's a retired mechanic. After my mom died when I was 8, he raised me alone. Coached my soccer teams, helped with science projects, worked overtime to pay for my college applications." She smiled at the memories. "He used to say that love isn't what you feel, it's what you do every day." William was watching her with an unreadable expression. "He sounds like a good man. The best." She hesitated, then asked, "What about your parents?" "My mother died when I was 12. Cancer." His voice was flat. "My father buried himself in work afterward. I was raised primarily by household staff and boarding schools." The stark loneliness of that statement hung in the air between them. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. William shrugged. It was a long time ago, but the shadows behind his eyes told a different story. The board dinner the following evening revealed yet another side of William. Olivia watched with quiet admiration as he commanded the room, presenting innovation strategies with passionate intelligence. This wasn't the cold, efficient automaton she'd first met. This was a man with vision and purpose. Later, as they walked along the river path toward home, declining their driver's services to enjoy the unseasonably warm evening, William asked about her teaching. "What made you choose elementary education?" "I had this teacher in 4th grade, Mrs. Donovan," Olivia explained, surprised by his interest. "My mom had just died and I was lost. Mrs. Donovan created this safe space where I could just be a kid again, where learning felt like an adventure instead of another burden. I wanted to create that for other children." William nodded thoughtfully. "You speak differently when you talk about teaching. Your whole expression changes." The observation, so personal, so attentive, caught her off guard. "I didn't realize you'd noticed." "I notice more than people think," he said quietly. Their hands brushed as they walked, neither acknowledging the contact nor pulling away. For a moment, they were just two people strolling by the river, connected by something neither was prepared to name. The following Sunday, Olivia found William struggling with meal preparation, surrounded by ingredients and looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "What are you doing?" she asked, amused by the unusual sight. attempting to cook. His frustration was evident. Mrs. Patel left instructions, but they're insufficiently detailed. Olivia bit back a smile. Would you like some help? His relief was almost comical, please. Together they prepared a simple pasta dish, Olivia guiding him through basic techniques. William approached cooking with the same intensity he brought to business, his focus complete as he learned to properly chop an onion. You're a good teacher, he observed as they sat down to eat. You're a surprisingly willing student, she countered. I wouldn't have expected that, because I'm rigid and controlling. There was no defensiveness in his tone, just self-awareness. Successful people often think they already know everything worth knowing. He considered this. Intelligence is recognizing what you don't know. My grandfather taught me that, at least. As they cleaned up afterward, moving around each other with unexpected ease, Olivia realized how comfortable this felt, this domestic rhythm they'd established. How dangerous that comfort might become, because in less than 3 weeks, this would end. The bills would be paid, the inheritance secured, the contract fulfilled. She would return to her apartment, her teaching job, her normal life, and William Harrison would become nothing more than an unusual chapter in her story, a brief intersection of lives never meant to truly connect. At least, that's what she kept telling herself as she lay awake that night, ignoring the hollow feeling that had begun to form at the thought of leaving. Fraying edges, the Harrison family estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured grounds. The main house, a Victorian monstrosity of turrets and gables. As their car approached through wrought iron gates, Olivia felt her anxiety spike. Your family doesn't know, do they? She asked quietly. About our arrangement. William's jaw tightened. Only my cousin Dominic, a lawyer who helped interpret the will's conditions. Everyone else believes this is genuine, including your grandfather, especially him. William's knuckles whitened on his knee. Gerald Harrison is many things, but gullible isn't one of them. We'll need to be ... convincing. Word hung between them, laden with implications neither wanted to address. Gerald Harrison proved to be a force of nature despite his 90 years in wheelchair. Sharp blue eyes, so like William's, missed nothing as he evaluated Olivia during introductions. So you're the woman who finally captured my grandson's attention? Gerald said, his voice stronger than his frail appearance suggested. I was beginning to think he'd marry his spreadsheets, grandfather, William warned. What? It's my birthday. I'm allowed to speak my mind. Gerald waved him off, focusing on Olivia. Tell me, my dear, what do you see in this workaholic that the rest of us have? Missed? Olivia felt William tense beside her. This was the moment to perform, to lie convincingly. Instead, she found herself speaking a truth she hadn't fully acknowledged. He listens, she said simply, not just to respond, but to understand. He notices things others miss. And beneath all that efficiency and control, there's someone who cares deeply about getting things right. Gerald's bushy eyebrows rose, and something like approval flickered across his weathered face. Interesting. That's their loss, Olivia replied, feeling William's startled gaze. Later, as family members mingled before dinner, Olivia wandered into the library, drawn by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. She was examining a collection of first editions when a voice interrupted. Harrison Technology's hostile takeover of Monroe Engineering 5 years ago. Did William mention that particular family achievement? She turned to find Dominic Williams' cousin, watching her with calculated interest. Tall and lean where William was broad-shouldered, with the same aristocratic features, but none of the intensity. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, confusion genuine. Monroe Engineering? Family business your father spent 30 years building before we acquired and dismantled it? His smile was all teeth. Surely William mentioned that. His company's aggressive expansion strategy included destroying your family's livelihood. The room seemed to tilt. My father was a mechanic, not an engineer. Leonard Monroe, son of Howard Monroe, founder of Monroe Engineering. Dominic's expression shifted from smug to uncertain. You're not Olivia Monroe? Yes? Her mind raced. Her grandfather had died before she was born. She knew little about him except that he'd been some kind of inventor. Her father rarely spoke of his own youth. Dominic recovered quickly. This is awkward. Assumed William had disclosed that particular connection, given your ... relationship. You assumed wrong. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. How fascinating. Dominic studied her. I wonder what other details my cousin has conveniently omitted. When William found her 20 minutes later, Olivia was sitting in the garden, piecing together fragments of family history. She'd never fully understood her father's bitterness toward corporate entities. His refusal to discuss his father's work, the stress that had likely contributed to his heart condition. You should have told me, she said without preamble. William frowned. Told you what? About Harrison Technologies and Monroe Engineering? It's about my grandfather's company. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by calculation. Exactly how much did she know? What damage control was needed? Dominic, he concluded with cold anger. What did he tell you? Enough to make me wonder what else you've kept. For me, she stood, needing the physical advantage of height. Did you know who I was when you selected me for this arrangement? No. His answer came quickly. The connection never occurred to me. Monroe is a common name, and your background check showed nothing about background check. She stepped back. Of course. You investigated me. It was standard due diligence for this type of arrangement. This type of arrangement, she repeated. Thank you for the reminder that this is just business. I'd almost forgotten. His expression hardened. What exactly did you think this was, Olivia? The question struck deeper than he could know. What had she thought? That the quiet mornings, the shared meals, the late-night conversations meant something. That the way he'd begun to smile more, to reveal fragments of himself, indicated change. Nothing, she said finally. It's exactly what we agreed upon. A transaction. She turned to leave, but he caught her arm. Olivia, wait. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. In 10 days, this ends. Both get what we wanted. But as she walked away, she wondered when what she wanted had become so terribly complicated. The revelation created a fissure in their carefully constructed equilibrium. They maintained appearances during the remainder of the weekend, playing their roles flawlessly for Gerald's benefit. But the easy rhythm they'd established was gone, replaced by cautious formality. Back at the penthouse, they orbited each other, like wary strangers again. William tried several times to broach the subject, but Olivia deflected. Retreating behind politeness, her father's recovery was progressing well. The one bright spot in her increasingly conflicted, emotional landscape. When she told him she'd be moving back to her apartment soon, he studied her with knowing eyes. You don't seem happy about that, he observed. It's complicated, Dad. Usually is when hearts get involved. She started to deny it, then sighed. I made a mistake. I forgot this was temporary. Leonard patted her hand. The best things in my life started as temporary. Your mother was supposed to be just one date. This garage was a short-term job until something better came along. His eyes crinkled. Sometimes temporary is just the universe's way of letting you test drive something permanent. But William wasn't looking for permanent, she reminded herself. He needed a wife on paper, not in reality. The inheritance would be secured, and he'd return to his orderly, efficient life, one where emotional entanglements were inconvenient disruptions. As the final week of their arrangement began, Olivia started packing, sorting what was hers from what belonged to this brief interlude. William watched her preparations with an unreadable expression, saying nothing. The night before their scheduled meeting with Josephine to begin divorce proceedings, Olivia found a folder on the kitchen counter. Inside were documents detailing Harrison Technologies' acquisition of Monroe Engineering, along with a more recent proposal, the establishment of the Howard Monroe Innovation Scholarship, funding engineering education for underprivileged students. Note in William's precise handwriting read, I can't change the past, but perhaps this honors your grandfather's legacy. Your approval before implementation would be appreciated. The gesture, so thoughtful, so specific to her family history, left her breathless with confusion. Was this guilt, manipulation, or something more genuine? When William returned home that evening, she was weighting the folder between them on the coffee table. Why? She asked simply. He met her gaze directly. Because it matters to you. 3 simple words, yet they contain multitudes. We sign the divorce papers tomorrow, she reminded him, searching his face for Something. Anything. Yes, he agreed, expression carefully neutral. Unless ... He let the word hang there, unfinished, a door left slightly ajar rather than flung open. An invitation, not a demand. Olivia stood, her heart thundering. "Good night, William." But as she walked away, she knew sleep would elude her, because for the first time, she was faced with a terrifying question. What if the ending they'd planned was actually just the beginning they both feared? Rewriting terms, the law office of Blackwood Legal felt colder than Olivia remembered. Or perhaps it was just her, chilled by the finality of what they were about to do. 45 days had passed exactly as stipulated in their contract. Now, sitting across from Josephine, blank-faced William beside her, it was time to dissolve what had never truly existed. Except that wasn't entirely true, was it? "Before we proceed," Josephine began, "I need verbal confirmation from both parties that all terms of the original agreement have been satisfied. Mr. Harrison." William's voice was steady. "Oh. All financial obligations have been met. The medical bills are paid in full, and the severance payment has been transferred to Ms. Monroe's account this morning." Ms. Monroe? They were back to formalities already. "Ms. Monroe," Josephine prompted. "Do you confirm receipt of all promised compensation?" Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. "Excellent." Josephine slid documents across the polished table. "These are standard dissolution papers. As agreed, the grounds cited are irreconcilable differences. Since there are no joint assets, and the prenuptial agreement was comprehensive, this should be straightforward." Straightforward. As if dismantling even a paper marriage could ever be simple. William signed first, his pen moving efficiently across each flagged line. When he finished, he slid the documents toward Olivia without meeting. Her eyes, her pen hovered over the signature line. One stroke, and she would return to her life financially secure. Her father healthy, everything she'd wanted when this began. Everything except... "I need a moment," she said abruptly, rising from the table. "Excuse me?" In the privacy of the restroom, Olivia splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection. What was she doing? This was the plan all along. A business arrangement with a clear end date. Nothing had changed, except everything had. The quiet mornings. The gradually shared confidences. The way William had started leaving his office door open when he worked late, as if inviting her company. The scholarship in her grandfather's name, not a bribe, but a genuine attempt to understand what mattered to her. When she returned, William was alone in the conference room, standing by the window. "Where's Josephine?" she asked. "We're taking a call." He turned, his expression carefully composed. "Is everything all right?" "No," she wanted to say. "Nothing is all right because I'm about to sign away something that feels increasingly real." Instead, she asked, "Why did you choose me?" "Really?" His brow furrowed. "Told you no. Josephine told me. I want to hear it from you." William considered her for a long moment. "Your application to the hospital financial assistance program crossed my desk. Harrison Foundation reviews. Cases quarterly. Yours stood out because of my name. Because of Monroe Engineering? Because of your letter?" His voice softened. "You wrote about your father, his dedication to you, his community work despite limited means, how he deserved. Better than financial ruin for needing medical care. It was ... compelling, so it was pity." "No." For the first time, frustration cracked his composure. It was recognition. Of someone who understood loyalty and sacrifice, who would honor an agreement no matter how unusual. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of discomfort. "I needed someone who wouldn't make this more complicated than it needed to be." Olivia laughed softly, the irony overwhelming. "How did that work out?" Something shifted in his eyes, vulnerability breaking through the careful control. Not according to plan. The admission hung between them, fragile and monumental. "I'm supposed to leave today," she said quietly. "Yes. Is that what you want?" Williams' careful mask slipped entirely, revealing raw uncertainty. "What I want hasn't been relevant for a very long time, Olivia. It's relevant to me." The conference room door opened as Josephine returned, files in hand. Shall we continue?
Williams.
Gaze never left Olivia's face. Could you give us a few more minutes, Josephine? When they were alone again, he moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. What are you asking me, Olivia? I'm asking if this arrangement has to end exactly as we planned. Her heart hammered, but she forced herself to continue. Or if perhaps we could renegotiate terms. What terms did you have in mind? His voice was carefully neutral, but something like hope flickered behind his eyes. Something less transactional, more unindebted. She took a deep breath. My father always says that sometimes the right contract isn't the one on paper, it's the one written in actions every day. William's composure broke entirely, a genuine smile transforming his face. Your father sounds like a wise man.
He is.
He also said I'd be a fool to walk away from someone who looks at me the way you do. When you think I'm not watching? Color touched William's cheeks, the controlled, composed CEO, actually blushing. I didn't realize I was so transparent. Only to those paying attention, she took a step closer. I've been paying very close attention, William. His hand reached. For hers, tentative in a way his business handshake had never been. What happens if we don't sign these papers today? I don't know, she admitted. That's not in any contract I've read. Terrifying, he murmured. Completely, she agreed. His fingers tightened around hers. Would you consider staying? Not because of any agreement or obligation, just because I'm not ready for you to leave. The simple honesty of it, so different from the careful language of their original arrangement, made her heart swell. I think, she said slowly, that I'd like to tear up our original contract and start fresh. No end dates, no predetermined outcomes. Highly inefficient, William noted, but his eyes were bright with something that looked remarkably like joy. Terribly, she agreed. We'd have to figure it out day by day. I'm not good at improvisation, I've noticed, but you're learning. When Josephine returned, she found them standing together by the window, the divorce papers untouched on the table. We've decided to try a different arrangement, William informed her, his voice steadier than Olivia had ever heard it. I see. Josephine's professional mask didn't slip, but her eyes betrayed a hint of satisfaction. And what would that be? William looked at Olivia, a question in his eyes. Shh. She nodded slightly, encouraging him. We're going to try being actually married, he said, wonder infusing the words. If that's acceptable to my wife? Olivia's heart soared at the tenderness in his voice. I think we could make that work, she replied. But I have one condition. William raised an eyebrow. Name it. No more contracts between us. Just promises we intend to keep. His smile, the real one that transformed his entire face, was answer. Enough. 6 months later, as they stood in the newly established Monroe Innovation Center, watching scholarship recipients display their engineering projects, William leaned close to whisper in her ear, Best business decision I ever made. Olivia turned in his arms, seeing not the efficient CEO she'd first met, but the man who'd gradually emerged, warm, thoughtful, still learning to balance ambition with connection. I thought we agreed, she teased. No business between us, exception. To the rule, he murmured, drawing her closer. Some arrangements are both business and pleasure, and some, she replied, rising on tiptoes to kiss him, are simply love in its most practical form. It wasn't the arrangement either had signed up for. It was infinitely better a contract written not in ink, but in shared mornings, quiet confidences, and promises kept every day.